Okay, let the record reflect the jury's back in the courtroom. Hope you had a great recess. Further evidence from the state.
State calls Edson.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat right there.
Could you state your name, please?
John Eric Edson.
How are you employed?
I'm a sergeant with the Missouri Highway Patrol.
And are you assigned to the Division of Drug and Crime Control?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that commonly referred to as DDCC?
Correct.
Were you involved in the investigation regarding the homicide of Ben Renick?
I was.
Can you explain to us how the Missouri State Highway Patrol becomes involved in a criminal investigation in Montgomery County?
I can't give you the particulars on this case, but I assume it was at the request of the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department. It's typically how it's handled.
And that's commonplace, that the Highway Patrol assists either smaller agencies, maybe they don't have the resources or the manpower or the experience to conduct such an investigation. Is that fair?
That is fair.
So you all are involved in this, and did you attend the autopsy of Ben Renick?
I did.
Why would the police attend an autopsy?
To collect evidence.
And did you in fact collect some evidence when you attended this autopsy?
I did.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 56. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Can you tell us what it is?
It is, do you want me to go ahead and just read it off, what's in here?
Just generally speaking, what's inside there.
Okay, it's evidence obtained from the autopsy of Mr. Renick.
And is it in the same or substantially the same condition as when you seized it?
It appears to be.
Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibit 56.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
56 be admitted.
Now can you tell us what is inside, specifically what's inside that
You want to
envelope?
put it on
Yes, I can. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Appears to be 5 projectiles and 1 box of fragments of a bullet.
And projectiles are bullets, right?
Correct.
And were these retrieved from Ben Renick's body at the autopsy?
They were.
I don't have anything else.
Cross.
No questions, Your Honor.
May this witness be finally excused?
Yes, sir.
What about you guys?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you're finally excused. You can step down. Thank you so much.
Thank
Call
you.
your next witness.
State calls Haslag.
Okay, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Have a seat.
Can you state your name, please?
Yes, Darren Haslag.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a sergeant with the Missouri State Highway Patrol.
And were you involved in the investigation of Ben Renick?
I was.
Are you also assigned to the Division of Drug and Crime Control?
I am.
Were you responsible for processing the crime scene in this case?
I was.
And you did that actually the early morning hours of June 9th. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
About 1:30 in the morning is when you got there?
Sounds about right.
Did you observe Ben Renick?
I did.
And when you saw him, how was he positioned?
He was laying on his back, feet to the north of the structure that he was in. He was in the southernmost point of this, or portion of a building that housed the snakes that he raised.
And did your investigation reveal that he was in a different position than when he was originally located?
That's my understanding, yes.
And what was your understanding of how he was when he was found?
My understanding is originally found face down, laying on his stomach.
I'm going to show you what have been marked States Exhibits 1 through 31. through those and see, tell me if you recognize them.
Your Honor, can we approach briefly? Yeah. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Do you recognize those, Sergeant?
I do.
And what are they?
They're photographs of the scene that evening.
The crime scene?
Yeah, that early morning, yes.
And are they fair and accurate representations of what they depict?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit states 1 through 31.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
1 through 31 be admitted. And then, are you gonna,
I'm going to publish them, yes, sir.
okay, just a minute here. Okay, is that number 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you see that on the screen in front of you, sir?
I can.
Can you tell us, this is State's Exhibit 1. What are we looking at here?
This is the structure where Ben was found deceased. This is the northern entrance to the structure.
And what about this? This is State's Exhibit 2.
That is the front door open to that, it's a closer up photo of the last photo that you saw, the front entrance on the north side of the building.
State's Exhibit 3.
That's standing just inside the threshold, actually to the right. It's probably a little further in. To the right is a storage room that's out of view, but to the left there would be an office, and the door further south or to your left would be the bathroom, but that's looking into the entrance from the front door of the building.
And then all of these plastic containers on both sides, what are those?
Those contained snakes. They were actually a series of shelving units with what I would call almost like Tupperware containers, and the shelf above the Tupperware container actually kind of served as a lid to contain the snake within the Tupperware. So if you slid the Tupperware out, the snake was right there. But it was filled. The building was filled with those sort of racks and Tupperware containers.
And State's Exhibit 4.
It's just moving further into the building from what you saw last. It's progressing to the southern part of the building where you find Ben's body.
And more snakes.
Yes, more snakes, yes.
And then what about State's Exhibit 5?
Okay, that main pathway of snake racks kind of takes a little jog to the side, and there's a little half wall there, if you can see that, with that stack of containers, empty containers in front of it. On the other side of that would be where Ben was laying, and along the southernmost wall of the building were more snake containers containing snakes.
So his body is going to be behind that white half wall towards the back?
Yeah, it's out of view now, but he's right beside that half wall.
And State's Exhibit 6?
Okay, that's kind of turning around and looking backwards towards the entrance, just where you just walked through, and the picture's depicted coming from. So,
State's Exhibit 7?
okay, that's kind of standing to the side of that half wall that I referenced in that earlier picture, and that's the body of Ben Renick.
And State's Exhibit 8?
To your right is the southernmost portion of the building, and that is looking, I guess that would be east, kind of standing along the westernmost wall of that southern part of the building.
State's Exhibit 9?
That's Ben Renick.
And that white sheet was placed there by EMS, is that right?
That's my understanding, yes.
State's Exhibit 10?
Just another view of Ben's body, and then if you look into the armpit area, there's a cartridge casing or a shell casing from a bullet round from a gun.
State's Exhibit 11?
Okay, that's one that's taken at 20. That placard actually identifies that there was a shell casing found under the shelf. just showing it in relationship to Ben's body.
Shell casings found underneath the what?
Under a shelf. I'm sorry.
Shelf?
Yeah, shelf, it's shelving system.
And State's Exhibit 12.
Just more photographs of Ben and also the pooling of the blood, the way it was running.
And State's Exhibit 13.
Okay, that's depicting Ben's body is identified as evidence item number 1, and then number 6 there is actually a fragment from a projectile. There's a kind of a difference between projectiles and fragments in our line of work. A fragment would be a piece of a bullet, whereas a projectile would be actually the larger part of a bullet, an actual contained large chunk of metal. So, and then 3 is identifying that cartridge casing that was laying in his, kind of in his right armpit.
That's the same, number 3 is marking the same casing we saw on an earlier photo, right?
That's correct. This is just a photo as you get into work in the crime scene. This is after we started placarding and identifying pieces of evidence.
And State's Exhibit 14.
That's my bad attempt at trying to light up a bullet fragment. It wasn't showing up real well on the photographs, but where that light is the fragment.
State's Exhibit 15.
Okay, number 9 I think was a droplet of blood that we had located on the floor, and including the photograph in the background of Ben.
And was it determined that that drop of blood was likely unrelated to this homicide?
I believe it was unrelated, yes.
State's Exhibit 16.
Okay, that's in relationship to Ben's body. Item number 7, which was another one of those fragments, one of those pieces of a bullet that had fragmented and broken into pieces.
And 17.
There is that cartridge casing or shell casing that was found near his armpit.
18 is just a close-up of the shell casing.
That's correct.
19.
Okay, this is showing something that we had a lot of questions about. There were several. If you look at the left side of the photograph, kind of where the blood is encirculating it, that's 2 divot marks in that tile. And then there's another one that's closer to Ben's hand, which were kind of, we didn't find that in any other portion of the floor. There were divot marks in that tile floor, so.
And Sergeant, might you be able to turn behind you and point on your
Sure.
screen so the jury can see what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's a divot, and I'm gonna have to get up, it's okay. Right there. Those were actually just little dents in the flooring.
And did you find divots like that anywhere else in this facility other than around Ben Renick's body?
I did not.
Did you look for them?
We did.
State's Exhibit 20.
That's just a photograph of that sheet, number 2. We identified it as placard number 2. We wanted to seize that sheet, so it's a photograph of where the sheet was in relationship to Ben.
And 21.
That's that fragment that was, I think earlier identified as maybe, I don't remember the number, but that's a bullet fragment. A little bit better picture of it there. There it is, number 6.
And that's State's Exhibit 22. And 23.
That's a cartridge casing or a shell casing that was found on one of the shelves to the south of Ben's body.
And do you recall about how high up that shelf was? Was it near the bottom or the top, or do you know?
It seemed like it was midway up the shelf to the lower portion of the shelf, probably.
24.
It's another cartridge or shell casing, depending on what you call it. That's under the shelving systems.
And 25.
That's the fragment that I identified earlier that was to the east of Ben's body.
26.
26 is Ben's body at the top there, the photograph, and then that's actually a projectile, an actual, different than a fragment. It's actually an intact bullet that's mushroomed, but that we recovered from the scene. And I think there's other photographs that show where we got it.
And that's on top of that white piece of paper by the 8.
I'm sorry, yes, on the white piece of paper near it, placard number 8.
And 27 is just a close-up of that same thing, is that right?
That is correct.
And 28, what is this?
Okay, that's where that came from. That's number 8. It was actually, went through a couple snake cases in the shelving unit and landed in that case with that snake, so.
And somebody had to reach in and get the bullet out with
I
the snake
did.
in it.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
Short straw. State's Exhibit 29.
That's showing some of the damage to the cases of where the the projectile had actually traveled through and came to final rest in that case.
And do you recall how high up on the shelving units these were?
I think from Corporal Faust's diagram, 3 foot 9 inches, maybe, something like that. I think he put that in his diagram.
Not on the ground.
No, it was not on the ground.
And State's Exhibit 30?
Picture of that shell casing in the rack that we had identified earlier.
31, that looks like more blood droplets, is that right?
That's correct. That's blood droplets, and then sitting next to it is what's a Nartec kit. It's a presumptive blood test that we use to see if what we're looking at on a floor is actually indeed blood. A lot of times blood looks a little bit different when it dries, and we're never really sure. So that's actually a sterile piece of paper that we can get a little sample of that blood on. We mix a predetermined chemical in, hit the paper where the blood spot was rubbed on the paper, and if it turns blue, it tells us it is indeed blood. So that's just saying that those are blood spots.
And similar to the previous blood spot, is it your belief that that really had nothing to do with the homicide?
It's my belief, yes.
And now I'm going to show you exhibits 32 through 43. Can you flip through those for me?
Okay.
And those are the autopsy photos of Ben Renick, is that right?
They are.
And you reviewed the autopsy report, is that correct?
I did.
And these photos are part of your case file?
They are.
Are they fair and accurate?
They are.
Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibits 32 through 43?
Okay, not 44?
Correct, 43.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
32 through 43 be admitted.
This is State's Exhibit 32. Can you tell us what we're looking at?
It's a photograph of Ben Renick's face at the autopsy.
It's your understanding that that bruising is as a result of the gunshots, is that fair?
Yeah, generally, the way it's been explained to me is that's the pressure inside the head that causes that bruising from a
Nobody
gunshot.
punched him in the face as far as we know.
Not that I know of.
Exhibit 33,
That's a bullet wound to the back of the head.
and that was an entrance wound, is that right?
It looks like one, yes. Yeah.
And 34,
Yeah, to my understanding, that was a portion of Ben's skull that had basically blown out due to pressure.
35,
Entrance wound to the jaw,
36.
exit wound to the jaw.
Is that the same, is it your understanding that that's the bullet that went in the left side of his jaw and came out the right?
That's my understanding, yes.
37,
Yeah, gunshot wounds to Ben's back.
and those appear to be entrance wounds as well, is that right?
Yes, to me they do.
And 38,
Yeah, more shots on the back.
39,
Sure, that's actually the projectile or the bullet that actually lodged in his shoulder there. So
and since there's a bullet inside that's an exit wound, would you agree?
I would agree, yes.
Exhibit 40,
Yeah, that's kind of in his elbow or in the bicep area, but again, you can kind of see the shiny projectile.
so again, another
That's
exit
protruding.
wound.
Yeah, it actually didn't exit, but it's an exit wound, yes. Yeah.
41,
Close-up of that same photograph.
and 42.
Yeah, just a wound to the right shoulder. I don't know if that's an exit or an entry. That's pretty close to both, so.
And how are you able to differentiate between an exit and an entry wound?
For me,
Based on your training and experience?
sure, for me, most of the entry wounds are very defined, holes, not much bigger than the actual projectile that's fired. And most of the time, the exit wounds will actually do more damage, or tear out the skin or blow out portions of the body.
And then finally, State's Exhibit 43, what is that?
Yeah, it looks like it would be Ben's right elbow with an entry wound. Looks like an entry wound to me.
to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 45. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
That would be Corporal Faust's diagram of the scene.
Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibit 45.
Any objection to 45? 45 be admitted.
And is it up on the screen in front of you too?
It is.
And can you just kind of walk us through that diagram, if you don't mind?
Sure. Is it okay if I stand up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, your photographs, if you, when we were talking about them earlier, this would be the front entrance to the building.
I'm sorry.
You're going to have to speak up if you're turning away from her. She can't hear you.
Diagram you're looking at is basically, this is the front entrance, the pictures that we saw earlier when we had entered the building. This is that long set of snake racks. This is that half wall where Ben's body was kind of obscured behind in some of the photographs. Southernmost portion of the building, the long row of snake racks where a lot of the evidence items were congregated to around Ben's body, and naturally a diagram or a shape depicting Ben's location.
I'm sorry, say the last part again.
I said a image, I think, showing where Ben's body was located, the portion of where Ben was located.
Now I want to show you State's Exhibit 47. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is it?
This is a package that contains the cartridge or shell casings that I located and seized at the scene.
And are they in the same or substantially the same condition as when you seized them?
Yes.
And then State's Exhibit 51, do you recognize that?
Fragment projectiles. Okay, yes, yes.
And what are those?
That is the projectile that was recovered out of the snake case and the two fragments that were located on both sides of Ben's body.
And are they in the same or substantially the same condition?
They are.
Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibits 47 and 51.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
47 and 51 be admitted.
And after you seized these shell casings and bullet fragments, projectiles, what did you do with them?
Sure. Transported them back to Troop F where they were packaged and released to our property control officer.
And at some point were they sent to the crime lab?
They were.
And I forgot to ask you regarding the divots. You said you searched through the property and the only divots you located were around Ben's body. Is that correct?
That's the only ones I found.
And what was significant about those divots around his body to you?
Sure. It caused some question on our behalf when we looked at it because we believe those divots were probably made by projectiles that were fired through Ben's body because where they were at was where he would have originally been laying face down. What we didn't find when we looked at those divots is projectiles or fragments from those divots, or at least we didn't see them around. So we were trying to figure out what happened to these bullets that would have struck the ground and made the impact. So.
And were you able to determine what happened to those bullets?
I believe they're the ones that were lodged under his, basically in his skin in those open wounds. I believe there was no room for the bullet to leave. It passed through his body, made the divot in the ground, and stayed in his skin.
Because he was on the ground when he got shot at that point.
I believe so, yes.
Do you believe that at any point during this incident he was standing?
I believe so.
Can you tell us what leads you to believe that?
Location of that projectile in the snake case, I believe it was parallel, pretty much parallel to the ground.
So the fact that the projectile is high enough, he would have been standing, and then obviously the divots on the floor and the fact that the projectiles are still in his body, he was shot after he was on the ground as well?
That's correct.
I have nothing further, Judge.
Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have to tie my shoe. Trooper Haslag?
Yes.
Good morning. How many investigators were there at the DDCC in your unit in 2017?
We've added some numbers. I don't remember when that occurred. I want to say 4 or 5 probably at the time.
And how many counties did those 4 or 5 investigators have to investigate crimes in?
At that time, we were tasked with 13 in Troop F, but there's times where we'll get called outside Troop F.
And you guys investigated all kinds of crimes, not just homicides, right?
That's correct.
Now, you were never the lead investigator on this case, right?
That's correct. I was not.
And you were just helping out whenever you were asked. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, along the way of the investigation when I had time.
And you had a couple of other current investigations going on at this time, right?
Yeah, we all do, pretty much, yes.
And you were never in any sort of decision-making capacity in the Renick case about who to arrest or who to talk to next or anything like that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you don't know really anything about this case or anything additional about this case besides what you've testified to today, the first night of. Is that correct?
I mean, I've been part of some of the unit discussions about things, but no, as far as my role in it, this is one of not a lot of leads that I participated in.
You testified just now that you've done a lot of work. You made this diagram.
No, that was Devin Faust. That was
Oh, you
Corporal
didn't
Faust.
make the diagram.
I did not.
But you took pictures
I did.
and you tested blood.
I did a presumptive test. They were ultimately
Okay.
sent to the lab.
How long were you there that night processing this in?
I remember seeing the sun come up. I don't remember how many hours we were there. We got there shortly before midnight and left after dawn.
You
after
took
sunrise.
pictures?
I did.
Did you take any pictures of Lynlee Renick's spa?
No,
Did you take any pictures of Michael Humphrey's trailer?
I did not.
Did you take any pictures of Ashley Shaw's house?
I did not.
Did you ever take any pictures of Michael Humphrey's car?
I did not.
Did you ever interview any spa employees
Ashley Shaw at one
besides
point.
Ashley Shaw?
I did not, no.
Did you ever use this technology to look at Ashley Shaw's phone that she had at the time of the homicide?
By technology, you mean a camera or?
Well, you guys have an actual, you guys are able to download files from off cell phones, right?
There are guys that are qualified to do that. I'm probably not the most tech savvy one that would be qualified to do that, so.
Did you ever investigate Brandon Blackwell at all?
I did not, no.
Now, does this diagram, Trooper, tell us who killed Ben Renick?
No,
Do you think looking at Michael Humphrey's car might help us know who killed Ben Renick?
well, I wouldn't, I don't know.
Do you think looking at Ashley Shaw's house or the spa might be more helpful than this diagram?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that for you.
The prosecutor asked you if you looked at the autopsy report and you said yes.
I did.
Do you know if Ben Renick had any drugs in his system?
I don't recall from looking at the tox. I don't know that I was more concerned about the bullet, how we got divots in the floor, so I don't
Do you
know.
know if Ben Renick had any medication in his system at all?
I don't know that. I don't know that.
That's not important to you? That wasn't important to you?
For the purpose of determining those divots is really what I was trying to figure out from looking at the autopsy report.
You're aware there's been a poisoning allegation in this case, right?
I am aware of that.
Now I want to talk to you about how Ben was shot, okay? You seem to have some kind of knowledge about that. Is that fair to say?
Somewhat, yes.
Ben was shot while he was standing with some incapacitating gunshots. Is that correct?
I don't really know which ones occurred when he was standing.
It would be logical he's standing before he's on the ground, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so if there were shots waist or shoulder high, that would sort of indicate that those were incapacitating shots. Then once he's on the ground, whoever shot him approached his prone body and deliver 2 more shots straight down into the body. Is that fair?
Fair enough.
And then whoever, step 3 was that shooter then crouched down and put the muzzle of the gun to the side of Ben's head and pulled the trigger a 3rd time, or a 6th or 7th or 8th time.
I can't speak to the crouch down and put it against his head. I don't know. There were shots fired, I think, when he was laying face
Well,
down.
the person is on the ground, Trooper, and the gun has to get to the side of their head while they're on the ground. Wouldn't they have to bend over or get the gun down there somehow by bending over? Wouldn't that require them to crouch down?
I guess I think I could stand up and shoot someone on the ground that's laying at my
Are
feet.
you aware that one of the gunshots was a close contact wound?
I don't know that I could determine any of them were close contact wound from my,
You don't know that?
I don't know that. No,
Okay.
I don't know that. Sorry.
The shot that went into the snake Tupperware container, did that miss Ben or did that pass through Ben's body?
I don't know that, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Now Ben did not move after, there's no signs that Ben moved in a significant distance after he was shot. He sort of was deceased where he was shot by virtue of lying on the pool of blood, correct?
There was no evidence that would lead me to believe that he
Okay,
moved.
so if a person is shot and they're actively bleeding and they stagger away, they're going to leave a significant blood trail, right?
If it's a bloodletting event, yes.
And this was a bloodletting event, obviously.
Yeah, after he hit the ground, yes. I guess my point was is that if the shot causes a bloodletting event, there would be a blood path.
Ben was lying in a pool of blood. Is that what happened?
Yes, he was.
Okay. So we have somebody who shot Ben and incapacitated him before he could move significantly. Is that true?
Yes, I mean,
Okay. And they didn't miss, right? Or they may have missed once, but they didn't miss.
he had a lot of rounds in him.
Okay? In those rounds, that means he didn't miss, correct? If they're in his body, they didn't miss.
The only area of damage that I found in the building from around
This is my question, Trooper. I'm
sorry.
asking, how many times did the shooter miss Ben? He was accurate. Every bullet hit home. Every bullet that shooter fired landed in Ben's body.
The only one that I can't answer for is the snake case. Is the snake, the one that went in
So
the snake
maybe
case.
one, but all the rest hit Ben
I believe so, yeah.
before Ben could move or fight or run away or anything like that.
Yeah, appears so.
And then whoever shot him stopped firing, approached the body, and fired directly down into Ben. Correct?
There were shots directly into him.
That meant the shooter had the presence of mind to stop firing, be aware of what he was doing, and then approach Ben. Correct?
Yes.
And whoever shot Ben was confident that they could accomplish this before Ben ran away or took the gun from them or anything like that. Is that correct?
I can't speak to their
I
confidence.
understand. Did you have any involvement in an arrest decision in this case at all?
No, I was off at the time. I had shoulder surgery when all that occurred.
When did you leave? And you were not on the investigation in a continuous capacity, right?
When needed, yeah, not necessarily continuous, no.
So when they needed you to do something, they would ask you, but otherwise you were not involved in this investigation.
Correct.
Can I have one moment, Your Honor? Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect.
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Is he finally excused
Yes, sir.
for the defense?
We may call him back, Your Honor.
All right, you're subject to recall, but you can step down for
Okay.
now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Call your next witness.
David Levinson.
Okay. solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Have a seat right there.
Sir, could you please state your name?
David Levinson,
And where do you live, sir?
Plato, Missouri.
And where is that from this location?
It's near the military base, so it's about 2.5 hours.
Down by Fort Leonard Wood?
Yes, sir.
And back in June of 2018, where was it that you lived?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
And in that time frame, June of 2017, I'm sorry, I think it's 2017, did you know a fellow by the name of Benjamin Renick?
Yes, sir.
How did you know Ben?
Through the industry. We were old friends.
And when you say industry, I
Oh,
think
the
we all
rep-
know where we're going, but if you can tell the jury what that industry is.
The reptile industry.
And you both were into the snake business, if I can use that term.
Yes, sir.
And could you describe a little bit of where Ben was at in terms of that snake industry?
Very well known by a lot of people. Definitely one of the bigger guys in the industry. Always conducted himself in a very professional manner, and he had a lot of good people around him.
And did his snake facility, did he have quite a few snakes at that facility?
Yeah, quite a few, probably north of 2,000.
And during that June time frame, were you aware of a business deal that Ben had with another individual to sell a portion of that snake business?
Yes, sir.
And how is it you were aware of that deal?
There was a time where I put them in the same place together. Robin was in St. Louis for a game. I had just mentioned that if he wanted to see somebody who was doing everything in a very professional manner in the hobby, a nice guy to talk to, I told him to go visit with Ben. After they initially met each other, they had always kept in contact, and Ben presented the chance to possibly buy the business. At that point, they were talking back and forth. I had helped by looking over some inventory lists and kind of just giving my 2 cents on both sides. And once things got a little more serious, I kind of stepped back and let them finish the deal.
And you gave us a lot of information there. Let me try to help unpack
Sorry.
it. No, that's okay. You mentioned a Robin. That's Robin Leonard.
Yes, sir.
And this isn't about Robin, and I hate to drag somebody into this, but he plays in the NHL.
Yes, sir.
And he's a goalie.
Yes, sir.
And when you mentioned he was in town for a game, Robin was also interested, away from his hockey career, interested in getting into this industry himself.
He enjoyed the hobby, enjoyed the animals. So
And,
yes.
and so you basically said, hey, next time you're in St. Louis area, Ben's a good guy you could look to and talk to.
Yes, sir.
And you said a lot more, but eventually, from their contacts together with you, they worked out a deal ultimately where Robin was going to buy a portion of Ben's business.
Yes, sir.
And I think you said you had some input for both of them in terms of value and things like that.
Just my opinion, just kind of helping out both sides wherever they needed anything.
And ultimately, do you remember what percentage of snakes approximately Ben was selling to Robin?
It was based on a species. It was everything when it came to ball pythons, everything else in the building. When it came to a percentage, I couldn't tell you how many it was, but it was just focusing on the one species.
Okay. And while you can't tell us how much of the business, there was a dollar amount on that sale, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what was the dollar amount of the sale?
I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, when it came to the nitty-gritty, now anything I might have read in a paper, I might have seen it, but when it came to the financial aspect of things, I kind of stepped to the side. It was more their thing.
But the number you knew or believed it to be was 1.2 million.
The number I've seen, yeah, has been 1.2.
And you're aware about the time of Ben's death, some of that money should start getting transferred from Mr. Leonard to Ben.
Yes, sir.
Now, in addition to that knowledge of the business, were you a fellow that Ben had, well, let me ask you this. You became aware he was murdered in June of 2018.
Yes, sir.
And I said 2018 again, 2017, my
2017.
apologies. After his murder, were you asked to be a caretaker or do something with all those snakes that were out there?
Well, essentially after his murder, the day afterwards, I spoke with Lynlee. She had mentioned that Ben had said if anything ever happened to him to call me essentially. I had made the decision to go up there to kind of just find out where I could help out, and, you know, essentially that's where it all started.
So basically, it appeared to you that Ben had said to Lynlee, hey, if something ever happens to me, Dave's the guy that might be able to help you with this whole facility of snakes.
Yes, sir.
And you eventually went up there and dealt with all those snakes, correct?
Within 2 or 3 days of Ben passing away, I had come out to Columbia, and within a day or two after that, I had been to the facility for the first time, and then moved forward with working every day.
And I want to ask you about something you found, ultimately. But over the next few months, you began caring for the snakes, correct?
Yes, sir.
And at some point in time, you began moving those snakes to another location.
Yes, sir.
Is that the place in Plato, do I remember correctly?
Yes, sir.
And as a result of that, could you tell the jury, they've seen some photographs of all these rows of what we call Tupperware containers and shelving units. Could you tell the jury what you did with each of those shelving units and containers at one point in time?
Yes, sir. I was removing one cage, one rack at a time outside to kind of give everything a good cleaning. I had taken a rack system to turn it on its side on a table so I could scrub it, and when I did, a bullet casing had come out and fallen on the table. At that point, I had been dealing with Devin, one of the investigators, and I reached out to him to let him know that I happened to notice this, and they had sent somebody out from Highway Patrol to pick it up.
So basically, you wound up taking apart these shelving units to clean them and move them, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in doing so, you found one more shell, an empty shell casing.
Yes, sir.
And you said you called Devin. That was Devin Faust with the Highway Patrol.
Yes, sir.
And he's somebody that I think you had mentioned you had talked to before.
Yes, sir.
And Devin, you're down in Plato, Missouri when you find this because you've already moved the shelving unit that you're taking apart, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Devin, instead of driving down to Plato, he has some troopers from that area go get this shell casing and take possession of it from you.
Yes, sir.
And you gave them that.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I don't have any other questions. Cross.
Mr. Levinson, you and I have never met before, right?
No, sir.
You were interviewed by the Highway Patrol about this investigation, right?
Like when I found the casing or just in general?
Just you were interviewed, right?
Yeah, I think within 3 days of coming out, Devin and one other gentleman, yes.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Devin, I believe one of the first weeks I was there, had come out to the facility and just asked me basic questions.
Did you tell that officer that you couldn't see Lynlee hurting a fly?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember telling that officer that you thought Lynlee was a good person?
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
Mr. Levinson, has your opinion changed?
This is all a lot to take in. You know, I don't know what to say about it, honestly.
You wouldn't repeat those two same statements to law
Ask and
enforcement?
answer, Your Honor. Objection. Ask and answer.
Overruled. Ask your question, counsel.
You would not repeat those two same statements to law enforcement today?
No, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Recross.
Mr. Levinson, do you think it's important to hear two sides to every story?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever heard Lynlee's side of the story?
I mean, we had talked a good bit just after it happened, but I don't really know when it came to details exactly we really talked about it. You know, I'd been given details about what she encountered, but that was it.
You read the papers, right?
To be honest, sir, I don't really do things like that.
All your information comes from the police, though?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nothing further.
Sorry, Judge. When you were working up there in Montgomery County at the snake facility, how long were you in that area working, do you think?
I believe I was staying on Ben's property in Montgomery for at least 1.5 years afterwards.
And you were staying there at that time, right?
Yes, I think it might have been around August or September after Ben's passing. I had went to the house to stay there to work with the animals and help out with the dogs.
And Lynlee was there and you saw her on a regular basis?
I saw her when I was in Columbia staying with her father and the kids, but once I was out there, only a few times.
You saw her, but you saw her a few times during this time frame, right?
Yes, sir.
And during these time frames, she appeared to you to be calm,
Yes, sir.
rational?
Yes, sir.
And this was yet when she and Michael Humphrey had yet to be charged with the murder of Ben, correct?
Yes, sir.
The case was still unsolved, if you will.
Yes, sir.
During any of those times with you, did Miss Renick ever say to you, hey, you know what, Dave? I was actually out at the snake facility and my ex-boyfriend shot and killed Ben Renick. Did she ever tell you that information?
No, sir.
If you had gotten that information, would you have told the police that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Recross.
I'm sorry, Mr. Levinson. How much money, again, did Ben sell his reptiles to Robin later for?
It sounds like the contract was in place for 1.2 million.
I'm sorry, say that again?
1.2 million, it sounds like.
So Ben Renick was going to get $1.2 million from an NHL hockey player.
Yes, sir.
So the Renicks were going to be millionaires.
Yes, sir.
And that deal fell through, right?
No, sir. I believe it moved forward afterwards.
Well, Ben never got the $1.2 million.
I can't tell you the exact amount that he got or didn't get, sir.
Okay, but he had
Now, I couldn't understand you.
Oh, I don't know the amount that anybody got.
at some point in time before Ben died, he was expecting to get $1.2 million.
Yes, sir.
And Lynlee Renick was his wife at that time.
Yes, sir.
I have no further questions.
You got anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may this witness be finally excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
What about
sir.
you guys? What'd you say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. You're finally excused. You can step down. Call your next witness.
Eric Bremer.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Have a seat.
Sir, could you please state your name?
Eric Bremer.
And do you know an individual by the name of Lynlee Renick?
I do.
And do you see her here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you indicate where she's at for this jury?
Over at this table.
Well, could you tell us what maybe she's wearing and how she
And
looks?
she's sitting in between these three women. She's the
Is she
middle
between the
female.
two women?
Yes, correct.
Your Honor, would the record reflect that the witness had identified the defendant?
Record will so reflect.
Mr. Bremer, could you tell the jury how it is you became to know Miss Renick?
We met when she opened her spa, doing marketing, radio advertising at that time, and that's how we first met.
And what was your job at that point in time?
Helping come up with advertising campaigns, radio,
I mean,
commercials.
it was through your work that you met her.
That's how we met. Correct.
And basically, for some radio marketing, you sold advertising for radio stations.
That is correct. Yes.
So if I'm driving down the road and I hear, hey, Joe's Quick Shop, you might have sold Joe's Quick Shop ad.
That's right.
And through that relationship, that was a business relationship, did that relationship change into something different?
It was. For a period of time from the end of 2016, December 2016 into 2017, probably around into August, 1st of September, it was a physical relationship at that time.
And I'm not trying to pry on your issue, but when you say physical, it turned into a sexual affair between the two of you.
That is correct.
You were both married.
Yes.
And you're aware, you may not be aware of the date, but on June 8th of 2017 is when her husband was murdered.
Yes.
Prior to that date, when in relationship to it, did your relationship become sexual, if you recall?
Around December of 2016, something like that.
Okay, so, I hate to do math, but maybe 7-8 months before.
Sounds right.
And after Ben was murdered, did the relationship, in not the business, but the personal side of it, did that continue?
I did for a few months, till about September.
And when did that end?
Around September of that time, it ended. It seemed like there was a lot going on.
Are we in 17?
We're in 2017. So a couple months after Ben's murder.
Correct.
You continued this relationship, but it ultimately ended a couple months later.
That's right.
And I don't mean to embarrass you, but where in terms of some of the sexual activity, where did that occur between the two of you at?
Initially, it was at the spa, and then after her husband was murdered, it would have been in a vehicle.
And what about prior to the murder? Was it all at the spa?
Spa.
Basically, you'd go in there as if for a massage, but you'd go into a room and something of a sexual nature would occur.
That's correct.
Judge, I don't have any other questions.
Cross.
Mr. Esmond, I'm sorry. Judge, could I ask one more question before you begin to cross?
Okay.
I apologize. Did the two of you communicate by phone, not only phone calls, but by text messaging?
Yeah, text, social media.
And I say the two of you, you and the defendant, right?
Correct, yes.
I'm sorry, Judge. I'm sorry, Mr. Esmond.
All right, you're a witness now.
Thank you. Mr. Bremer, how did this relationship with, the sexual relationship with Ms. Renick start specifically?
It was just at the spa. We were talking about things. I was in an unhealthy marriage at the time.
Did you ever say to the police that Lynlee Renick was one of the nicest people you've ever met?
I believe in the first time I was interviewed, I did.
Did you ever tell the police that you walk away from conversations with her a better person after talking with her?
I probably did the first time I met them, yes.
And you have contact with lots of people in your line of work, right?
Correct.
You see a lot of people.
That's right.
And out of all those people, Lynlee Renick was one of the nicest, most caring people you knew at that time.
At that time, it felt that way to me.
And after Ben Renick died, you sent her a lot of text messages supporting her. Or I don't know what they were.
Yeah, just try to be supportive. It seemed like an awful
You
time.
wouldn't have done that if you thought she murdered somebody, would you?
That's correct.
But you did, right? Mm-hmm. Is that yes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you offered to do things for her, right? Like bring her food and things like that?
I did one time bring her food.
And didn't she express to you, I mean, what was your impression of how she was doing emotionally during that time?
Seemed really difficult for her. It was a very hard time.
I have no further questions.
I'm sorry, what was your opinion of her being the nicest person one would ever meet?
That's, I believe, what I said the very first meeting I had with the police shortly after that.
And that was before, well, let me ask you this. Has that opinion changed?
I suppose so. I'm not in contact with her in a long, long time.
Well, based on what you now know, you would not say that same thing.
Objection, Your Honor. That's,
Judge, he's
that
the one
statement
that
facts that are not.
Let him make his objection.
He's implying facts that he's implying facts that are not in evidence.
Overruled. Ask your question.
Not knowing what you now know, would you share that same opinion that she's one of the nicest people you would ever meet?
Not at this time.
And during all these conversations or times you were together with her during those couple months after the murder of her husband, did she ever at one time when she was having all these difficult times with you, did she ever once tell you, you know what? I was present when my husband got murdered by my ex-boyfriend. Should I tell the cops that information? Did she ever once say that to you?
No.
Did she ever even once hint around at any point in time that she knew and was present when her husband got murdered?
No.
I don't have any other questions.
Any reproach?
Yes, Your Honor. What information did you learn, Mr. Bremer, that changed your opinion of Lynlee Renick?
I just remember
Your
things
Honor,
that I've read.
He asked the question. He
I
asked,
don't mind the answer. Okay. Judge, go right ahead.
I mean,
No objection.
the information that you've heard that changed came from the state and came from, and you've never heard her side of the story is what I'm trying to say.
I've had zero connection since 2017, so anything has been what I've read about, seen in the news.
Okay, so you really don't know anything about this, right?
I have no idea.
Okay, no further questions.
She never once told you her side of the story, did she?
No.
She never once told you that she was present when her husband got murdered, did she?
No.
No further questions?
All right. May this witness be finally excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
We may recall him, Your Honor.
Okay, you're subject to recall. You can step down now, okay? Call your next witness.
Judge, could we approach?
Yeah. take a break at this point, and I can read you the short version. The court again reminds you of what you were told at the first recess of the court until you retire to consider your verdict. You must not discuss this case among yourselves or with others or permit anybody to discuss it in your hearing. You should not form or express any opinion about the case until it's finally given to you to decide. Don't research this case on the internet or by any other means. Don't read, view, or listen to any newspaper, radio, or TV report of the trial. Your food is, we're going to try to hurry it up. It was going to be here at noon. Is it Subway? Jimmy, I bet you all thought we didn't have a Jimmy John's in Boone County. Well, we do. And it's coming at you. Can we just step on that a little bit? Can we do that? Just as soon as it can get here. And that's it. You can go with the bailiff. Thank you. We'll be in recess. So we're probably stuck with not starting again till 12:30. That sounds like what the deal is going to be, okay? Just be where I can get a hold of you. Did you give your cell numbers where we can get a hold of you? Well, let's do that so I can holler at you. You guys can sit down or whatever.